Is your company implementing or piloting AI, but it's not going well? But that's not a surprise because most companies are in the same boat. And it's not the technology's fault. It all comes down to people. In today's video, you'll learn why most AI adoptions for business are failing, according to an MIT study, and how to avoid those pitfalls. Let's accelerate your business. Welcome to the AI Accelerator for Business show, where you get the latest strategy, tactics, and information about the business benefits of artificial intelligence. My name is Carl Ye, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jeff Bradshaw. And today we're going to be talking about that MIT study that everyone is talking about, the 95% failure rate. And I think we want to provide our insights because we've been working with businesses in terms of AI implementation over the past 2 years. And while there's some things that there's definitely agreement of in the conclusions in the study, but there's also some questions or, some for us, like considerations that I think businesses need to take into account when looking at a study like this and then making their decision in terms of AI implementation for their business.
Yeah, Carl, this is an important topic because I think that we're seeing this over and over again with our clients where they get really excited about AI, they jump on board, they come up with a plan, they work with guys like us, and then 2 or 3 months later, when we leave it in their hands, it flops. And then they get frustrated and they don't see where that return on investment is. So it's important to, follow through with not just coming up with a plan, but actually having a process and an integration plan for the overall organization.
When I looked at the study, a lot of the conclusions that we saw were like, those are no-brainers to us, right? It's like, oh, it's a cultural one. Yeah, it's change management. ROI is not just about revenue. It's like, no, it's how can you quantify a person who saves 35 hours a month from doing invoice consolidation? How can you quantify that in a, return on investment to the shareholders? The value of back office tasks, which is ridiculous, right? And then even one where the term shadow AI is like, yeah, if a company is going to give everybody Microsoft Copilot and it doesn't solve their problems and the performance is less than or average than a ChatGPT, of course an employee is going to use something else that's much better than the output of that. It's no questions.
Well, it's almost, there's so many intangible benefits with AI that you can't measure from a financial standpoint. And I think the other thing too is that a lot of companies' mentality is that it might start saving somebody time, but all we're going to do is pile on more work. So you're not necessarily going to see that efficiency. So I don't know. I think it's almost too early to really determine the failure rate of projects.
Well, I think so too, because we've noticed this so many times. You build something, a fantastic automation, a fantastic digital assistant, whatever it is, and the employee has actually used it. And it's like, oh, this will save me. Like, they're excited. You come back a month later, they're like, hey, I've been using it. No. Question, why have you been using it? I got busy, I forgot. And all the different reasons. And that's not the fault of the employee, nor is it the fault of, the implementation. It's just hard breaking years, if not decades, of behavior. Like, it's very, very difficult to break that.
Well, and we talk about that with clients too, is that again, they think we're going to come in and we're, the knight in shining armor with an AI solution. And we're very upfront with clients saying that the tech isn't the biggest challenge, it's the change management piece. So if you don't have people on board that are committed to this, and like we've talked in previous shows, that aren't afraid of failure and aren't going to give up on their first or second, maybe fourth or fifth failure, they're going to keep trying it and testing it and modifying it, because that's where the breakthrough happens. We've seen this with some of our clients where even some of the people that are keen to try it and are committed run into some frustrations, but once they keep pushing through, all of a sudden there's a realization where they go, holy crap, this has saved me a ton of time, ton of headaches. They're the ones that never turn back. I use my fiance as an example. I mean, she's launching a new business, just a sideline business, and she was, wasn't real keen on AI, just wasn't that interested. She all of a sudden caught on to a few solutions that saved her tons of money and tons of time. And now she turns to AI first for everything. She is fully committed and she's making the most of it. those are the success stories we want to see with some of our clients in these organizations, but it's a commitment.
And that's why, for us, we had to launch our AI accelerator program, because what we were finding is, without accountability, without regular encouragement, people will just, we do it ourselves, go back to the natural way of doing things because it's just natural habit. So without, this is where I think the AI champions in your organization, the AI committees in your organization, they're not just there to do passive, oh, we're going to meet once a month to do some governance, decide latest tools. No, no, no. The job of the committee is to be proactive and encouraging your teams, your departments to regularly use AI and make them accountable for all the projects you've developed. So, you have the example of whether that's the personal trainer, right? You always put the example about, like, hey, you have a gym, you have a membership, but this is why gyms make so much money, because only a percentage of those people who signed up will actually go. And this is why people hire personal trainers and even personal coaches. It's not the actual action. It's more hey, you need someone to remind you and help you be accountable, because it's hard to break those habits. If you don't work out regularly, it's hard to, switch on and work out on a regular basis. This is exactly the same. If you don't use AI on a regular basis, shift your mindset, make those adjustments, it's so easy to just drift back and just use AI passively.
Well, and even you and I mean, we hold each other accountable. We hold our team accountable because sometimes I know when we first started using WhisperFlow, I'd rib you every once in a while in presentations going, why aren't you using WhisperFlow? And you're like, oh, right. You do that to me all the time. I'm trying to do a manual process. You're like, why don't you run it through this? And I'm like, damn,
Yeah.
thanks, Carl. So we do that with ourselves. And I think that's the neat thing about this accelerator program. And again, we always say, whether you use a group like us or whether you do it on your own, just do it. I mean, our accelerator program is, we meet with these teams and we set them up for success. We share the latest releases from AI so they can stay on top of that. But then we're like, what do you want to do between now and the next meeting? And that's for each department within an organization. And we hold them accountable. That could be the simplest task. That could be write some letters with ChatGPT, or it could be something more complex like build out a custom GPT or run an automation or do some image creation with some of the image gen tools. But the next meeting, they're going to show up and they're at least going to be able to say, yes, I tried it and I failed, or I tried it and I had some success, or I had great success. But now you're sharing experiences amongst your team so that everybody's in it together. You don't have that one AI, enthusiast who's off doing their thing and having great success and not sharing any of those stories with the rest of the team because there's no commitment level.
Noticing it with so many companies, it and no fault of their own, it's hard because everyone has stuff to do. They have work commitments, they have personal commitments, and outside of the AI bubble, this isn't like a natural thing. So people aren't going to keep up with the latest whatevers, like the latest features, capabilities. And, they're starting to tune out all the, hey, this is GPT-6, Grok 5, whatever. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Because in our previous show, we talked about, do you really need more powerful AI? No, because we barely use the capabilities of current models. How much more powerful can it get? And I think this study kind of illustrates what are the things that we've found in the field of, why AI adoption, it takes a longer time, why change management is literally the ultimate tool. um, you have to consider that it isn't just selling the latest automation, because you have to have change included. And then I think a big thing too is continuous learning. It isn't enough for you to take an AI course. It's not enough for you to take buy the 100, 200, $500 session, because what you've learned in a month ago, 2 months ago, that no longer applies. Like, so for example, we did a training session with the Calgary police several months ago. I would say, hey, we need to go back and redo that training session, because I would say half, if not 60% of what we talked about has changed and we need to update it. I think that's a big piece. Now, mind you, the study itself was kind of there's a little bit of like question marks there and its impact on stock markets and so on because the limited sample size, it's so ambiguous what failures and return on investment are. And then, the reliance on self-reporting, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a questionable study in terms of how scientifically, like, what are the actual correlations related to it. But the conclusions are kind of the things that we talk about on a regular basis.
I was curious as to whether or not they used any AI for their study because they should have. And I wonder what that information was based on and was it relevant
Yeah.
information. But I go back to the our comment about like it's like our accelerator program is like a fitness coach because unfortunately there is no Ozempic for AI. And I don't think there will be anytime in the near future. And once there is, then that just means all of your competitors are going to be taking Ozempic as well and you're all going to have a same looking type products. I think to me is that if you're in business and you're looking for a competitive edge, you're looking to, save costs, improve operating systems. It takes commitment. And the interesting thing is that I think most companies are already committed to that, but they're committed with old school thinking. They're still having planning meetings. They're still doing strategy sessions. They're still trying to figure out how to improve their products and services. They're still
Mhm.
trying to improve their sales processes and marketing and accounting systems, but they're basing it all on old school information. If they take that same energy and commitment level and start to take a look at the way they can use AI for these new solutions, I think they're going to be way further ahead in the long term. It might be a little bit more of a learning curve for them, but huge upside and return on investment in the long term, in my opinion.
There was another article, that was done, I think it was Fortune as well, and it was the MIT report spooked investors, but it's the reasons why those pilots failed. This is the name of the article that should make C-suite, anxious. And I think it goes back to what we always look at, right? It's like, hey, you're putting budgets in the wrong things. Paid for 250 Microsoft Copilot licenses, but you never ask your front lines what are their actual problems and if Copilot can actually solve those problems, right? Then some of the things are a lot of the companies have started building their own AI models in house. But I was like, but why would you do that? Because these tools like an AI lab like Anthropic could easily provide you a better user experience with the highest capability for $20 a month instead of you spending 1 million, $2 million. And so it's like there are all these little nuances. And this is why I'm so pessimistic about many businesses being able to actually do a successful AI adoption because it's not the technology like we've already talked about. And, do we need any more powerful AI? Not really. It's not the technology. It's the way you've been doing business, the way your business operates and all the process workflows. That's the thing that'll hold you back because you're trying to bolt on AI into a process or system that, yes, you may get 10 to 40% productivity. Yeah, you may get the efficiency gains, but that system or process was never designed to have AI built into it. So it's until you rebuild those processes entirely to be AI centric and even rebuild your business. Like we always talk about, hey, why don't you create like a AI native, like, I don't know if it's a game or an example or a paper, create like a clone of your company, but what if it's AI centric?
Yeah.
And how would you operate? Because there will be an AI centric company coming into your market sooner rather than later, or next year, 2 years, that they'll have 10 people instead of your 100. They'll have 20 people instead of your 500. That doesn't have all these issues that these studies have come up with, that they're just already have a massive advantage on you.
Well, and I just thought about this, Carl, but that could be a great exercise for corporate retreat. So if anybody's having a corporate retreat, we could actually run and say, okay, great, we'll give you the basis of AI. Let's now rebuild your company AI centric. There's you know, no roadblocks here and nothing that's going to stop you. What would you change in your operation? And I think it would probably be an eye opener for a lot of companies.
And there's a lot of people in your companies, and this is your AI champions, AI committees, that would be very excited about kind of thinking like that, right? So thinking beyond what your company is doing now and completely reinventing itself. Because if you don't, it's not that your competitor will, it's just that native AI company will come up and be like, well, here we are. And like you were talking about, one of our clients, a cab company, they were like Uber just showed up and be like, well, we're here. There's nothing you can
Airbnb.
do. And yeah, you can delay it with legal, you can delay it, but it's like delaying the inevitable. And to me, the inevitable is coming. And this
Well,
is why, yeah.
like you take a look at the recent ones, like an Uber, like an Airbnb. Um, but I mean, there's so many. Go back a few more years, and the television stations, the TV or the newspapers, the radio stations, those media companies dominated the world. They were the big players, cranking out all kinds of cash. All of a sudden, now you've got Meta and Google eating your lunch. A bunch of kids out of garages that are all of a sudden taking these companies, so that most of those companies that I used to work for back in the 90s, like McLean Hunter and Bayton, all these other groups, there's a few survivors like Rogers, but that's just because they gulped up all the, old media companies. And that was only 20 some years ago. 10, 12 years ago was the Ubers and the Airbnbs. And there's going to be more of that coming in the future. So why not start to take a look at these technologies and how you can integrate it? And also, but again, like you've said, don't don't waste a bunch of money on some big expensive tool. Take some time to actually think about a strategy as to where it makes the most sense for your organization, and take baby steps, but do it quickly. And that's what we try and encourage all of our clients to do: is get in the game, start taking a look at how you can integrate these systems, do some tests, but don't invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into the latest great sales pitch you got from some company that has some kind of an AI solution built in.
So I want to list out a couple of these legacy operations that pretty much all companies still have. And this is not a knock on them because this is applicable to how business operates day to day, right? But these are the ones that are also not congruent with how AI operates. I'll give you an example first, right? There was a talk. I think the guy name is Nate Jones. You got to follow him on YouTube, on TikTok, and he was talking about Apple. So Apple, to as you know, usually tries to perfect the product before it launches. So while Google might have, or yeah, Google usually has better tech, Samsung, whatever phone has better technology, Apple just waits, packages it really well, and then puts it out, and the consumer wants that. The 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 difficulty with that is I think Apple kind of tried to do that with whether it's Siri, with their AI, try to be the most perfect customer centric, customer ready. It doesn't work like that in AI because this thing changes every single week and 2 weeks. So while you try to perfect, whatever you're using has already been bypassed for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And people's memories are pretty short. Well, in the AI circle, right? It's like, oh, you know, just last year, everybody wrote Google off. Now everyone's like, hey, Google's amazing. Um, the launch of whatever agents, agent mode from ChatGPT, were forgotten within a couple weeks when GPT-5 came out. We're like, holy smokes, this tool is actually really good. Completely forgot. So it's a very short-term memory. And I know they're big on hardware, but like if you're going to compete in this market, in this game, that is much different. So that's an example of a company whose legacy operations has served them very well over decades that doesn't really match with what AI is doing today. So a couple other ones are like, we always hammer IT. Well, like you have slow IT rollouts, right? Because you have to get it in everyone's hands. Well, like by the time you finish it rolling out, there's then something new that beats everything else, right? Or our favorite, oh, we have annual budgets. It's like, so we can only buy this thing in September, and you're going to have to wait till September next year to purchase this new tool. Well, like if you're on that track, it's going to be very difficult for you to do anything. We're talking about waterfall projects. We're talking about data ticketing. So some companies, you have to request IT to give you access to data so you can then use your AI tool. Well, like by the time your ticket gets processed, you're way beyond the tool. And all these legacy systems work because they work for the business today. They do not work for AI today or in the future. And I think that's the big issue, is that all these legacy systems are in fact a hindrance to AI adoption.
You know what? And I think it's interesting you say that, because I think as well what you're going to see is these companies that are used to these slow rollouts or these annual budgets and everything else. Now with AI, we've talked about this. Like, I'm going to release a product today. You're my competitor. You're going to grab my product, reverse engineer it, and come up with a better product and release it a month from now. And I'm going to be on my heels. If I'm stuck on my great big new release and I'm not adaptive and I'm not willing to turn on a dime and change
Yeah.
mid-year, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah. So a couple questions for our audience, and really to think about, I think, going beyond this MIT study, is the first one is there an entrenched process in your organization that is kind of throttling AI implementation? So is that IT process rollout? Is that waterfall methodology? Is it data ticketing? Is it your budget? Think you have to identify those pieces and start having those conversations in your company. It's like, hey, with AI coming, this stuff doesn't work for us anymore. And you've got to make sure you have those conversations and people take you seriously, because again, like we talked about, these are the processes that are a hindrance for what AI could do. And then finally, are there any back office tasks that you believe, and we talk about this in discovery, and you can do your own discovery, find out if, what are those eye roll tasks, those repetitive, data driven, predictive tasks designed that can be redesigned with AI. I think those are, you have to figure out, and then see if you can rebuild some of those things to be AI centric. Learn more about implementing AI for your business by watching these videos here. Enjoy today's episode? Want to learn how you can impact your business with AI? Then please subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.